You are Locked On Broncos POSTCAST, powered by Mile High Sports, part of Locked On Sports Denver, on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Broncos country, welcome on into your Locked On Broncos postcast. I am your host, Aniello Piro. You guys can follow me on social media at Media by AP. And the Denver Broncos get one step closer to the NFL postseason with their 31-13 thumping of the Indianapolis Colts on this Sunday, December the 15th. Hope everybody is feeling pretty good out there in Broncos country as they get the job done in convincing fashion in the second half. You almost had me in the first half, but the Broncos got the job done there in the second half thanks to great defense. And while it was an off day for Bo Nix doing just enough there in the second half to help will this team to victory. You absolutely love to see it. And today's episode of your Locked On Broncos postcast is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. More from our friends over at FanDuel in just a little bit. But man, what a performance from the Denver Broncos. As I said just a moment ago, first half looking a little rough. Second half, much better. And the defense put the team on their back today. In particular, Nick Bonitto, Pat Surtain, PJ Locke, all making impact plays. Jonathan Franklin Myers making big-time plays throughout the course of this game as well. So a well-earned, a hard-fought victory for the Denver Broncos as they take down the Indianapolis Colts 31-13. If you guys are watching live on YouTube, appreciate y'all. If you're listening on the Locked On Broncos podcast feed, make sure to like and subscribe on the Locked On Sports Denver YouTube channel. That way you guys never miss an episode of your Locked On Broncos postcast. And I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. We'll talk about this a little bit later on during the show. Playoffs? Loading? And I don't think, I don't think it's a jinx at this point. I mean, they have over a 90% chance at making the NFL postseason with their win today over the Indianapolis Colts. So you absolutely love to see that, man. And, we'll just have to see where the chips fall when it's all said and done. But the Broncos get the job done here today. They improved to 9-5. They are now 5-2 at home on the year. Of course, those only two losses come to the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Los Angeles Chargers, who will be their opponent here on Thursday night. So a short week, the second time this year, the Broncos will be playing on Thursday Night Football. And the Colts fall to 6-8. Their playoff dreams are essentially a pipe dream at this point, and they're 3-5 on the road. So you want to see, what's going to go on with the health. Patrick Surtain leaves there, at the end of the game. Not sure why he came back in after banging up his ankle a little bit, but he's a gamer. He's a grinder. Big time win for the Denver Broncos. You just hope Pat's going to be okay for that Thursday night matchup. As you can see, Chris here in the comment section, you and I are on the same wavelength, buddy. That is definitely one of the major concerns. One of the only few things that you don't like about the outcome of this game today is Patrick Surtain had to leave with that ankle injury. He was dealing with it throughout the course of the bye as well. Got banged up there. What was that? I think late third quarter, early fourth quarter. Ends up coming back into the game and then is unable to finish the game due to that injury. So you hope Patrick Surtain is okay. But why don't we dive into this game, man? I mean, 31-13. And if I could put on my negative hat for just a moment, and then we'll be very positive the rest of the show. Denver won this game 31-13, right? You love that. You don't like what you saw in the first half. You don't like the struggles that you saw from this offense, especially now that you're expecting the Denver Broncos to make the playoffs. And I also think the Broncos were the beneficiary of one of, if not the worst quarterback in the league in Anthony Richardson, a risk taker through multiple interceptions today. So when you get to the playoffs, you're going to need the offense to up the ante a little bit if you want to be competitive in the NFL postseason. That's it for my negative Nancy take. But yes, good win. Happy about the win. But if this was the Chiefs, if this was the Steelers, if this was the Buffalo Bills, right, I'm not sure the game plays out that way. So Denver's got to be a little bit more opportunistic on offense. But they certainly were. Cortland Sutton catching that touchdown pass there late in the fourth quarter. Love to see that. Bo Nix, keeps fighting despite the bad day for him today. Multiple interceptions for Bo. So he's been a little shaky now in the last couple of games, but he is a rookie. He's shown you that even when he's not at his best, he can still figure out ways to lead this team and help this Broncos team win football games. We've seen the growth of Bo Nix over the course of the season. There's going to be good, there's going to be bad, but the fact of the matter is the defense did their job, and Bo did what he needed to do late in the game to help steer this Denver Broncos team to victory. So Bo finishes only 20 for 33, 130 yards total passing today for Bo. Same amount of touchdown passes as he has interceptions. So yes, the 3 touchdowns, you love to see that, but the 3 interceptions, you don't like to see that, right? He only had a quarterback rating today of 61.4. So you want to see Bo, get it out of your system now, right? 3 games left, Thursday Night Football against the Chargers. Then you've got the Bengals, and then you've got the Chiefs. And if all holds up, that final game against the Chiefs, I actually think they might, do themselves both a favor by not playing a majority of their starters. We've seen the Chiefs do that in years past, where as long as they've got the number 1 seed all lined up and closed out, they're probably not going to play their starters. And assuming Denver's locked into a playoff spot, a playoff seed at that point, I would probably hope they do the same, because you want to be well rested for that playoff game. Chris, you and I are absolutely on the same wavelength. Appreciate you in the comment section, my man. Make sure to like and subscribe so that way you guys never miss an episode. He says run game is still terrible. That's exactly where I was going to go next, because yes, the run game is not good. They did have 72 yards collectively of rushing offense, which is not good by any stretch of the imagination. But Bo Nix was the leading rusher today for the Denver Broncos. He had 8 runs for 23 yards. But this little, I don't even know if you want to call it a 3-headed monster, because, it really hasn't been that type of dynamic all throughout the course of the season. Jaleel McLaughlin, 7 carries for 21 yards. Javonte Williams, 6 carries for 15 yards. Audric Estime, 5 carries for 13 yards, right? So just not a lot of juice from this Denver Broncos rushing attack. If they have to play an outdoor, playoff game down the stretch, whatever it might be, you want to be able to lean on that rushing attack a little bit more than you've been able to throughout the course of the season. Now, look, Jaleel McLaughlin's had moments. Javonte Williams had moments. I know my guy Troy Rank of the Denver Post, who we do the Broncos podcast with on the Mile High Sports YouTube channel. Check it out tomorrow morning. He's an Audric Estime believer, as am I. But the results are that this Denver Broncos rushing attack, for the most part, is just not reliable. It's not reliable. And when you have a rookie quarterback with, a lackluster, for lack of a better phrase, wide receiver group as well, you put a lot of pressure on Bo Nix. But thankfully, that's what the defense is here for. Because when you have Patrick Surtain locking down one side of the field, when you've got Nick Bonitto and Jonathan Cooper and Jonathan Franklin Myers all disrupting the opposing team's quarterback, that's going to make life a lot easier. This Denver Broncos defense has been ferocious, and a really nice bounce back for them as well after getting smoked, despite the Broncos winning that game against the Cleveland Browns a couple of weeks ago before the bye. So you like the bounce back across the board from the defense. Still questions about the rushing attack. Bo Nix is Bo Nix. You got to take the good with the bad, smile with the sad, whatever it might be. And that's what's going to just kind of be the situation here with Bo Nix. But thankfully today, they get the job done in pretty convincing fashion, in part because of the defense, in part because of the late composure from the offense, but also in part because the Colts, in my opinion, are not very good. Anthony Richardson is not very good. I mean, he's a liability out there. Anthony Richardson, we'll get into some of his stats today, but he was awful, absolutely awful. Oh, and I also didn't mention this. Thank you, Jonathan Taylor. Thank you, Jonathan Taylor, for dropping the ball before you went into the end zone, because it would have been a 2-score game there had Jonathan Taylor been able to, I don't even know if we want to say been able to, if just he had not made a boneheaded play by dropping the ball before he got into the end zone. And Jonathan Taylor has not scored a touchdown since October. That would have been his first touchdown since, essentially 2 months for JT. And he does the Broncos a favor. He, gets off on a good run. He's got daylight. He had the touchdown, and he drops the ball right there at the 1-yard line to start celebrating before ensuring that the ball had crossed the goal line there. So shout out Jonathan Taylor, boneheaded play that ends up kind of flipping the script and the overall momentum for this game as the Denver Broncos get the job done. Your final score, 31-13. You absolutely love to see it. But if you're watching live on YouTube, guys, appreciate y'all. Make sure to hit that like button, smash that subscribe button, drop some comments. I always say I'm the host of this show, but you, the fans out there, are the ones that help me drive the conversation. We got Chris active in the chat. Let me know how you guys are feeling out there as the Denver Broncos get the job done. We'll go back and forth here a little bit when I come back from my first break. 31-13, your final score. Love to see it. Back in just a moment, talking the Denver Broncos' big-time victory over the Indianapolis Colts. All right, you guys. Let me tell you real quick about our friends over at BetterHelp. Because therapy, guys, it does not need to be a scary thing. I needed some therapy after spending all day at the car dealership yesterday. Let me tell you. But like I said, guys, therapy does not need to be a scary thing. How do you stay cozy during the winter months? For some, wrapping up in a blanket with a mug of hot chocolate or coffee or watching a movie with the family is the best way to spend the month of December. Therapy is also a great way to bring yourself some comfort that never goes away, even when the season changes, guys. Make sure to check out our friends over at BetterHelp if you've been thinking about giving online therapy a try. Again, BetterHelp.com is the place to go. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Find comfort this December with our friends over at BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off of your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon, and you'll get 10% off of your first month with our friends over at BetterHelp. Again, doesn't need to be scary. Convenient, flexible online therapy. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon to get started. And let me also, this is a fun one. Let me tell you about our friends. If you're a football fan, you're also probably a college football fan. And folks, the college football playoff is upon us. So let me tell you about college football on TNT and Max. It's that time of the year. The college football playoff is back. And with the newly expanded 12-team format, it's guaranteed to be bigger and better than ever, bringing you all the hard-hitting and high-flying excitement that you love. TNT Sports coverage of the college football playoff begins December 21st, starting with the college football playoff kickoff show presented by AT&T and 11 a.m. at 11 a.m. Eastern, leading into our first matchup, the Southern Methodist University Mustangs battling the Penn State Nittany Lions. So if you're looking to watch SMU versus Penn State, you know where to check it out on TNT. And then you have the Clemson Tigers as they look to upset the Texas Longhorns, horns up, horns down, in a showdown at 4 p.m. Eastern. Don't miss a moment of the action. Watch the college football playoff presented by Allstate live on TNT, True TV, TBS, and Max. Guys, college football season is here. It's coming to a head. College football playoff. Make sure to catch the games on TNT throughout the course of the playoff season. Okay, welcome on back into your Locked On Broncos postcast. I am your host, Aniello Piro. You guys can follow me on social media at Media by AP. Do me a quick favor, guys. Hit that like button, smash that subscribe button. If you're listening on the Locked On podcast feed, shout out to my guys, Cody and Sarah. They're always bringing the knowledge, always bringing the thunder. If you want some instant reaction on YouTube, and you're listening to it right now, if you're on the audio feed, Locked On Sports Denver is the channel for you to subscribe to. So check them out. And again, you guys can follow me on social at Media by AP. Let's talk a little Denver Broncos defense, though, shall we? Because the defense, man, they were great today. They were fantastic today, only allowing 13 points collectively. I mean, Anthony Richardson was awful. 17 for 38, 172 passing yards, no touchdowns, and 2 interceptions for a quarterback rating, oh my gosh, this hurts me to say, of 36.3. He was sacked a couple of times as well, but was under pressure, running for his life throughout a majority of this game. Jonathan Taylor had 107 yards on the ground rushing, should have had a touchdown, dropped the ball before the goal line, no touchdown. So JT got his on the ground, but failed to score here today. And man, this Denver Broncos defense, after getting gashed against the Cleveland Browns, I mean, they got absolutely gashed. You know, Jerry Jeudy got his, but the Broncos got the W. A really nice bounce back performance for Denver's D. Now, again, you hope Patrick Surtain is okay. You know, he was good enough to come back into the game. So hopefully it was just a lingering injury that maybe flared up there late in the fourth quarter. Maybe I would imagine that he will be questionable for this game on Thursday Night Football. If it's Sunday, does he play? I don't know. But at the end of the day, you know, Patrick Surtain already down Riley Moss too, who's, you know, been out for the last handful of weeks. Your secondary is getting a little bit thin there. So you want to hope that Patrick Surtain is going to be good to go. And look, I mean, it's funny because the guy records no tackles. Patrick Surtain had 1 tackle today in the game. That's not his fault, though. That's because he literally takes away an entire half of the field. That's how impactful he is. They were talking about on the TV broadcast. We just had him on the cover of our Mile High Sports magazine. If you guys want to order one of those or get one, check it out. milehighsports.com/magazine. Great stocking stuffer as well. Great story. We have Nick Bonitto, who I'm about to talk about right now, as well, featured in that magazine. milehighsports.com/magazine is the place to check that out. Just look for PS2 on the cover. But it is one of those situations where, you want to see that he's okay, right? But, everybody else, for the most part, Chris Abram-Drain made a fantastic play there, in the end zone, deflecting what could have been a touchdown pass for the Cleveland Brown or for the Indianapolis Colts, excuse me. And so, a lot of guys picked up the slack tonight. Brandon Jones led the team with 9 total tackles, 8 of them solo. Justin Strnad seemed to be hovering around the ball. He had 9 total tackles. Cody Barton bringing the thunder today with 8 tackles. Malcolm Roach had 6. Nick Bonitto with 5.5 sack as well. And man, what an interception, a house call, an absolute house call for Nick Bonitto. Chris, once again, brother, we're on the same wavelength. Bonitto for DPOY. Look, it's going to be tough. Let's see if I got to do a FanDuel read here in a moment. Why don't I get these odds pulled up? They're probably locked right now, but you got Myles Garrett, right? You got some other phenomenal players, on defense. But here's the one thing that I'll say about Nick Bonitto. Everybody knows the name Nick Bonitto now. He has been an absolute force for this Denver Broncos team this season. So you absolutely love to see it. I mean, that pick 6 was incredible, and I caught real quick. He was on the field after the game doing the quick hit interview. And he talked about, when he saw Anthony Richardson kind of shimmy out there and jog to his side, he knew that it might be a trick play. Bonitto, Johnny on the spot, house call for 6 for the Denver Broncos. And then Patrick Surtain shortly thereafter, also with an interception. So the Mile High Sports magazine guys, PS2, Nick Bonitto, shining through with their victory today, or in the victory, rather, I should say, for the Denver Broncos. But man, Bonitto, look, I don't think you can compare anybody to Von Miller in regards to defensive lore for the Denver Broncos. But Nick Bonitto is filling that role, just like the guy that you can rely on, right? A fan favorite, a disruptor, a versatile player. And who's to say, Von was fantastic, right? We all love Von Miller. That number 58 will be retired one day. An iconic player in Denver Broncos franchise history. But I think the Broncos have now found their new Von Miller type of player in Nick Bonitto. Also, shout out to Jonathan Cooper, man. 7th round draft pick. They gave him an extension in the middle of this season, right before the Baltimore game, I believe. And he's been doing the darn thing. And again, I can't say it enough. I think I say it every show. Kudos, a salute, a mile-high salute, that is, to Vance Joseph, a guy that, was the head coach for the Denver Broncos at one point, gives up, 70 points last year against the Miami Dolphins. And this year, there's a chance, I think a good chance at that Vance is going to be gone after this year because he's probably going to get another head coaching gig. But he has been absolutely phenomenal at making adjustments throughout the course of this season. And Bonitto mentioned this in his postgame interview as well. Opening touchdown drive for the Indianapolis Colts. They adjust the game plan in the second half. And let's see, how many points did the Indianapolis Colts score in the second half? Oh, that's right, 0 points. 0 points in the third quarter, 0 points in the fourth quarter, 24 unanswered points for the Denver Broncos in the second half of this game. Of course, 6 of those coming from Nick Bonitto himself and 21 unanswered alone in the fourth quarter. So the Denver Broncos slamming the door shut on the Indianapolis Colts in their game here today. You absolutely love to see it. That's what good teams do. Good teams make adjustments and figure out ways to win games, even when some parts of the team aren't, firing on all cylinders, a la the offense today, a la Bo Nix. And the defense, I can't say it enough, picked him up in a big way. And Bo Nix also never lost his confidence. I can't wait to see what Bo had to say after the game here today. He's probably kicking himself, right? He's going to say we're going to analyze the tape and going to have to, control Alt-Delete and move forward to Thursday, a familiar opponent in the Los Angeles Chargers. But it's one of those situations where you love to see it across the board with what Denver was able to do collectively despite their struggles today, man. So shout out to the defense. Shout out Pat Surtain. Shout out to Nick Bonitto. And the one guy, we haven't talked about. How about Marvin Mims? A dynamic kick returner. I mean, he had a couple today that, obviously the one there in the second half that really kind of jolted this team moving forward, but he is a shifty guy with the ball in his hand. And, they tried to run it to him once throughout the course of the game. That didn't work out, but he has lightning fast speed. And you can see, part of the reason why Denver moved on from Tim Patrick before the season started is, they were confident in Devon Vele. They were confident in Troy Franklin. They were confident in Marvin Mims. And while it hasn't always been there, I think he's had let me pull this up. One huge game I believe Marvin had at the wide receiver position this year. Let's take a look here. Yeah, it was actually against Cleveland. He had 4 receptions for 105 yards and a touchdown. He's been a little serviceable at best beyond that, right? Against the Raiders, he had 5 receptions for 44 yards, or 3 receptions for 44 yards, and today he only had 4 for 20, but he made a tremendous impact in the return game today that helped really jumpstart this Denver Broncos offense and really just kind of give this team the energy that they needed throughout the course of the game. So shout out to Marvin Mims. Great game for him today. So love to see that. But all right, guys, let's hit my final break. When we come back, we'll take a look at the remaining schedule for the Denver Broncos. Couple of closing thoughts as well. And let's talk a little playoffs. Let's talk a little playoff outlook, because now, like I said, I don't think it's a jinx. I'll give you their percentages, right? They have a very, very, very high likelihood now to the Denver Broncos at making the NFL postseason. So we'll hit our final break. We'll come back and do just that right here on your Locked On Broncos postcast. Real quick, guys, let me tell you about our friends over at FanDuel, because FanDuel is my personal favorite sportsbook, and I know it will be yours too. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL, all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, like I did today, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. And like I mentioned, I was sitting there at halftime, and there was a turnover late there, bad interception from Bo Nix, and I got my plus money at even money, actually at plus 100. And I'm sure the odds probably went a little up and down throughout the course of the game as well. The Broncos were always the favorite in the first half, at least. I was just looking for a plus number to give me some good odds. And lo and behold, there it is. Broncos plus 100. Put a little dinner money on that. Bang, that came through for me. So check out our friends over at FanDuel, guys. Again, one more time, never waste a hunch. Make every moment more with FanDuel. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. So if you haven't signed up yet, take advantage of that promotion and let them know that Locked On Broncos sent you. All right, welcome on back into your Locked On Broncos postcast. I am your host, Aniello Piro. You guys can follow me on social media at Media by AP, as the Denver Broncos take down the Indianapolis Colts by the final score of 31-13, 21 unanswered points for Denver there in the fourth quarter. Starting a little bit shaky, looking like a team that was a little rusty off the bye, but finishing strong, which is what you want to see for this Denver Broncos team as the regular season slowly comes to its conclusion. And can you believe that the Broncos also just clinched their first winning season since their Super Bowl year? Since 2016, they went 9-7. But they're on track to make the playoffs for the first time since they won Super Bowl 50. So that's Peyton Manning. That's DeMarcus Ware. That's Demaryius Thomas. That's Aqib Talib. The Denver Broncos now have upwards of a 90% chance to make the NFL playoffs. They had long odds. I just did the FanDuel read. Long odds before the year to make the NFL postseason. And this was the biggest game on the slate today in the NFL. If you thought Detroit and Buffalo was the biggest game of the slate, or biggest game on the slate, you're a casual, just to be completely honest with you. You're an absolute casual, because that game had essentially no playoff implications. Eagles, Steelers, good matchup on paper, minimal playoff implications. Although I do think Pittsburgh clinched a playoff berth today thanks to the Colts loss. But this game, you had two teams. Before this game, the Indianapolis Colts had roughly a 50% chance to make the NFL playoffs. Today, I'm sure after the loss, I'm sure those odds are, close to the teens, if not lower than that. Whereas the Denver Broncos, as I just mentioned, have increased their probability to nearly 90% to make the NFL playoffs, which is just so incredible. And that's, you got to give a tip of the cap to Sean Payton. You know, there was a lot of people that when Denver brought in Sean Payton a couple of years ago were kind of shaky. He's washed. He's only won one Super Bowl, whatever it might be. Those takes were out there for sure. But Sean Payton, after he was able to get Russell Wilson out the door and kind of build this team with his quarterback his way, I mean, this team looks entirely different. And you know what? I was never a Russ hater. I never was, to be completely honest with you. So good for Russell Wilson for finding success with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And you know what the fan in me is rooting for? You know what the fan in me is dying for? Give me the Denver Broncos against the Pittsburgh Steelers in the first round of the NFL playoffs. Give that to me. Inject that into my veins. That would be an incredible matchup. A revenge spot for Russell Wilson, kind of a petty spot for Sean Payton after moving on and the Broncos eating all that dead cap money, drafting Bo Nix, both teams having success, or both, situations there. Russ finding success in Pittsburgh, Denver now with Bo Nix and Sean Payton. That would be a juicy, absolutely juicy matchup in the first round of the NFL playoffs. So give that to me. But again, folks, the Denver Broncos they do have upwards of a 90% chance to make the NFL postseason. And they also essentially knocked the Indianapolis Colts out of the postseason race today as well. So looking at what's coming up now for the Denver Broncos at 9-5, only 3 games left. And also they're on a 4-game win streak, man. Denver's on a 4-game win streak. It could have been 5 if it wasn't for that blocked kick there at the end of the Kansas City game, about a month ago now. But they take down the Falcons 38-6. They take care of business against the Raiders 29-19. They win a shootout against the Cleveland Browns 41-32. And then they squash the Indianapolis Colts with a 31-13 victory here on your Sunday, December the 15th, about a week and a half away from Christmas. And we'll have another Broncos game here in just a few days at the Chargers, who lost today. Bad performance for them against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So that game, if you remember, was flexed into Thursday Night Football. That'll be a fun matchup. So 2 road games left, back-to-back road games coming up now for the Broncos. At the Chargers and then at the Bengals. Bengals are obviously down and out as well, but, Joe Burrow's playing like an MVP caliber quarterback, even though he's not really in the consideration because of how bad his team is. And then if you can take care of business, Chargers, Bengals, boom, boom, you're probably going to be locked into that one of those final seeds there in the playoffs, and you might not really have much to play for in that final week against the Kansas City Chiefs, which might give them an opportunity to get rested, get Riley Moss good, get Pat Surtain good, get Bo Nix's mind right, get everybody's mind right before hopefully they return to the NFL postseason for the first time since they won Super Bowl 50. So only 3 games remain for the Denver Broncos. But guys, man, wow, what a game today for Denver. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section. Appreciate all the live viewers. Make sure to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button as well. That way you guys never, ever miss an episode of your Locked On Broncos postcast. But if you guys got any thoughts out there in the comment section, go ahead and drop them. If not, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this baby up. I've got some Italian food waiting for me upstairs. So I'm going to go manja on that a little bit. But, man, what a victory today for the Denver Broncos. Defense doing their thing. Nick Bonitto, Pat Surtain, Cooper, PJ Locke with a nasty forced fumble, man. Just lowered that crown, head on the ball, popped right out off of Michael Pittman's arm. Love to see that too. So the Broncos defense bounces back after a rough game against Cleveland, and Bo Nix gets the job done here on offense. Cortland Sutton with a touchdown reception here today as well, late in the game. So you like to see that. Helps my fantasy team a little bit too. And, where do we go from here? Got to win on Thursday, right? The next game's the most important game. But this was also kind of, in closing, the biggest game for the Denver Broncos in almost a decade. Playoff implications, at home, rookie quarterback, able to kind of knock a team out of the playoff picture as well. And the Denver Broncos delivered, and they get the job done here tonight. Your final score, one more time, 31-13. But all right, folks, that is going to do it for me. Appreciate y'all. As always, make sure to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Always appreciate the interaction with the lovely fans out there in Broncos country. Cody and Sarah will have you covered on your Locked On Broncos podcast. And for any of you listening on that Locked On Broncos podcast feed, if you want some instant reaction, make sure to subscribe to that Locked On Sports Denver YouTube channel. Victory Sunday. Enjoy your Victory Monday. And we'll talk to you guys on Thursday night, hopefully after another dub for the Denver Broncos. Have a good one, folks.